Okay, go live. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome, welcome. Um, so I just realized, right before going live, I realized, as some of you saw, Kai, the character representing my partner, had updated look, and for every other screen in my live stream, I updated it, but I forgot to do it for this one. But yeah, because you'll see, it's like, bam, ponytail, no bangs, you see? And then there's old look. So, whoopsie doopsie. I'll fix that for the next one. But yeah, hi everyone. I'm back from my vacation. I had fun. Basically, we just went to a hotel in town. We had someone take care of Cora. Don't worry, he was fine. Uh, but yeah. Anyways, hello, hello, hello. Um, oh, I think I'm being a bit loud. There we go. I turned the volume down a bit. I just don't want to, pop my filter. Just all right. Adjusting volume. Alrighty, alrighty. Yes, instant haircut. Um. Uh. Yeah, Genie Villain, you might have this on mute. Um. But yeah. Anyways, so onward. Um. So, as you can see by the picture, originally I wanted this live stream to be called Autism and Misinformation. But fitting the word misinformation into this was really awkward, so I had to not. So I changed it to myths. Um, but yeah, as an autistic person and an autistic advocate, um, there's nothing more infuriating than misinformation about autism. Hmm. Okay, can everyone else hear me? Because Genie Villain seems to be having trouble. Can anybody else hear me? Just let me know. Because I just want to make sure it isn't just a, okay, yeah. Yeah, try leaving and rejoining. Make sure that your computer isn't muted. Yeah, okay, so yeah. Yeah, ask Genie if, yeah, that was, yeah, reloading the page. Okay, you have it now. Cool. I'm glad that worked out. But yeah. Yeah, yeah. Alright, I'm glad you're here. Now I'll start. How about I restart for you so you can hear? So, beginning of the script. As an autistic person and an autistic advocate, there's nothing more infuriating than misinformation about autism. I have no ill will towards those who believe the misinformation, since most people who do aren't doing it out of any desire to be malicious. Although you do have those who refuse to listen to reason and attack you when you try to correct them. So, for those who simply heard wrong information first, but are open to changing their mind, I have no grievance with them. Since so much research about autism has been done without any input from autistic people, it makes sense that a lot of misinformation exists. When you try to learn about a person's experience without directly asking them themselves, you're going to be wrong, no matter how closely you watch them. You can't know what's inside someone's mind from purely observation alone. Yeah, Robbie, I hate that myth too. The whole we can't feel empathy. Ugh. Instant hair growth. People haven't exactly been researching autism for long. The term autism didn't even exist until around early 1800s, and it wasn't until the early 1900s. My goodness. Uh did I say 18 or 19?
Uh, I'm not totally sure.
Pay attention.
I was
I know.
looking at the chat.
So I'm just gonna restart.
Professionalism.
Yes. Thank you for accepting my non-professionalism. People haven't exactly been researching autism for long. The term autism didn't even exist until the early 1900s. And it wasn't until 1940s that people really started looking into it. Back then, only young boys were ever studied when it came to researching autism. So that's a huge chunk of the autistic population being excluded from the get go. So many autistic traits not looked into or documented. This is where the belief of autism only affects children and or boys came from. There are still people today who believe that only cis men can have autism or that it's something a person can grow out of. There are still countries where people can't get diagnosed as autistic once they're legally an adult because every professional who's qualified to diagnose autism will only work with children. I remember having someone comment that they couldn't get a diagnosis until they immigrated to the US because they couldn't get one in their country because they were an adult. Too many people still rely on outdated resources and information. Studies that were done 20, 30, 50 years ago are still being used today as research material. In studies that say autistics have no empathy or imagination, that no autistic person can maintain eye contact, and that we all have either really high IQs or really low IQs. New research is being done on autistics, but so much of the old incorrect information is still being used today. In 1985, our good old friend Simon Baron Cohen, along with a developmental psychologist named Uta Frith, did a study involving autism and theory of mind. For those who don't know, a theory of mind is a measurement of one's capacity for empathy and understanding others. The study incorrectly determined that autistic people had a delay in developing theory of mind. However, a 2009 study showed that autistic people don't have a delay when it comes to theory of mind, but that we simply compute it differently. We have empathy and can understand others. We just do it differently. Problem is that so many people look to the 1985 study and ignore all of the new research. It doesn't help that the old study has the name Simon Baron Cohen attached to it, and people respect that name when it comes to autism research, and they really shouldn't. I was being sarcastic. Simon Baron Cohen is not our friend. Um, there's so much out there to debunk the misinformation. Whether it comes from studies or autistics ourselves, but it gets ignored. I understand that some people refuse to look at any studies that'll contradict their current beliefs. I mean, that's why we have flat earthers. But the old, obsolete research seems to be held on by many people. I think the reason for this is because for so long, no one argued with these studies. The study done by Simon Baron Cohen about autism and theory of mind wasn't challenged for over 20 years. How many professionals who currently work with autistics were trained before it was ever challenged? So much of the misinformation on autism has only been debunked recently. So many of the professionals who specialize in autism probably went to school when those incorrect studies were all they had to work with. And how many of the university professors today teaching the new generation of therapists, psychiatrists were taught misinformation and refused to look at the new studies or listen to actual autistics? It takes a long time for misinformation to be erased by new and more accurate information. And this isn't just with autism. There are still people who believe things like sexuality being a choice, that being trans is a mental disorder, or that violent video games make people violent. All of these things have been debunked, and less people believe them each year. But there are still those who see them as fact. I don't know how long it'll take before the old studies about autism are no longer looked to. But we just need to keep moving forward and counteracting the misinformation when it pops up. There are a lot of autism myths. Like, a lot of autism myths. Myths about why we're autistic, why we behave the way we do, how our brains function, etc., etc., etc. I can't go over all of them because we would be here all day, but I'll go over some of them. The number one myth is that autism is a disease. It's not a disease. It's simply a different neurotype. Our brains aren't wired the same way as neurotypical's brains, which has us reacting to and interacting with the world differently. Unfortunately, some people see our behavior and deem it as wrong and that it must be fixed. In their eyes, we are broken, sick, and must be cured. I'll discuss myths about autism cures later, but the belief that autism is a disease is the root of every autism cure myth. Another fairly common myth that has been spread thanks to media depicting autistic people is that autistics are either geniuses or have intellectual disabilities. Another one that ties into this myth is that we're all savants. This myth messed me up while growing up because I'm not a savant or a super genius. So I thought that I was an idiot. My grades in school were very average. The only thing I felt that I was really good at was drawing. And even then, I had friends who were better than me at that too, because I do have some uh, motor function issues. So my hands don't always move the way I want them to. I never excelled in a way that people expect of autistics. So I saw myself as a failure. It really brought down my self esteem. Media never depicts autistics with just average intelligence. It took so many years for me to be able to say to myself, I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. I'll be happy when this myth disappears, but I have a feeling it won't for a long time, if ever. The myth that every autistic is an introvert or doesn't want to make friends has been a big problem for some of us. I know it's because some people, uh, I know it's caused some people to be misdiagnosed or had their suspicions of being autistic shut down. If an autistic person has friends and or is an extrovert, they suddenly can't be autistic, no matter how many other autistic traits they have. It makes me happy that I got diagnosed before my socializing skills improved. In the last few years, I've heard people say things along the lines of, You're autistic? I couldn't tell. So many dang times. The myth that autistics don't want to make friends can be so incredibly harmful, especially for children. They'll intentionally be isolated, not because people don't want to be their friends, but because they think it's the right thing to do. Sometimes our awkwardness and blunt behavior can come off as rude or unfriendly. That doesn't mean we don't want to make friends. We're just not always the best when it comes to social interactions. Of course, there's the myth that autistics will never amount to anything. We can't learn, we can't succeed, we can't be independent. And I know that there are some autistics who can never be fully independent, but that doesn't mean they can't do anything. They aren't incompetent. I've talked to in the past about how much believing your autistic kid will never amount to anything can really harm that kid emotionally and mentally. Believing that you're nothing but a burden will severely damage your self esteem. If a kid is constantly being told to never try because they'll always fail and never and are never encouraged to do anything, it makes sense that they'd never succeed in anything because they'll never try anything. You can't finish anything if you never start anything. People who see their autistic children as a useless burden make me so angry. They do so much harm to this child. But if you call them out on their behavior, they're the victim and you're just a nasty bully. These types of people just shouldn't have kids, honestly. That's how I feel. I talked earlier about the 1985 study that said autistics have a delay in developing theory of mind. This is the idea that autistics lack empathy or can't feel emotions at all, and it really dehumanizes us. It makes us sound like we're uncaring, unloving, and heartless. I remember in my early to mid 20s believing that I couldn't feel love as strongly as others because of my autism, and worrying that because of that, I wasn't good enough for my partner. I did eventually realize that I had been wrong, and I'm glad I did. It's one of the many things that's kept this relation going so strong for 11 and a half years now.
You're good enough. Dang it, you're good enough.
People don't seem to realize that some of the myths can, what some of these myths can do to an autistic person. Just not in how others treat us, but how we treat ourselves. Oh, Papyrus, yeah. My family has really high standards just because I'm quote unquote high functioning. Like, no, I still need help. Yeah, that's why I hate the term high functioning autistic. It's like, oh, you're high functioning? That means you're completely okay and don't need any help at all. You're essentially not autistic at all. It's like, no, that's not what it means. Please help. I need help. There are many myths as to what causes autism, but I'm just going to go over the most popular ones. I think we all already know the most popular myth as to what causes autism. Yep, that's right. It's vaccines. Thanks, Andrew Wakefield. Because of you, measles are back in North America. His original study said that the MMR vaccine, or the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, was causing autism. His study has since been debunked, discredited, and his license revoked. And yet, people still choose to believe that he was right. Some even point to him losing his license as proof that he was right and that Big Pharma or something is just trying to hide the truth. I just really don't understand some people. What he speculated was that the thimerosal, I think that's how you pronounce it, um, which is a mercury based preservative used to keep vaccines from getting contaminated, was the main cause of the autism because it had mercury in it, even though the type of mercury used isn't dangerous and the amount in the vaccine was so minimal, you'd get more mercury in your system from eating fish. Apparently, thimerosal just magically rewires children's brains or something. Of course, now the only vaccine that has thimerosal in it is the childhood flu vaccine. And even that has a thimerosal free version. So anti vaxxers are pointing at other ingredients in vaccines and claiming that they cause autism since they can't blame the thimerosal anymore. The second myth I want to talk about is that autism is caused by what's called refrigerator parents. It's a belief that autism is caused by bad parenting or cold, uncaring parenting. And while neglectful parenting can do a lot of harm to the child, it can't cause autism. Even though this was debunked way back in the 1960s, some people still believe it. It was started by one of the first people to start researching autism in the 1940s, Leo Kanner. He suggested that autism might be caused by a lack of maternal warmth. Kanner stated that he often noted that parents of autistic children weren't as affectionate towards their children as parents of neurotypical children were towards their children. In actuality, the parents were either autistic themselves and simply showing affection differently, or their child didn't like certain forms of affection, like hugs or kisses, so the parents wouldn't do them. Eventually, Kanner did renounce his belief that parenting caused autism during a speech in 1969. However, that apparently wasn't enough for some people. There are still those who see an autistic child having a meltdown in public, which happens, and immediately blame the parents because somehow they're bad parents and that that caused the child's autism. And seriously, what does it tell you of early autism research that this myth was started by one of the first people to research autism? The final myth about what causes autism that I'm going to discuss is diet. Whether it be gluten or lactose or GMOs or just lack of nutrition, there are plenty of parents who subject their poor child to any diet they think will somehow make them less autistic. The belief that diet had anything to do with autism started when people started noticing how common it was for autistics to have gastrointestinal issues such as IBS or GERDs. So instead of thinking that it was simply a common comorbidity, they jumped to the conclusion that bad gut bacteria caused autism. If you've ever wondered why parents were forcing industrial bleach into their children via the miracle mineral solution or MMS, it's because they were told that the bleach would kill the gut bacteria that they believed caused their child's autism. When it comes to the belief that GMOs cause autism, you need to look no further than the anti-GMO movement. In Canada, it's not uncommon for large grocery stores to have a GMO-free aisle for all the people scared of GMOs because they don't understand them. They think that they're dangerous because they think it involves splicing food with weird and bizarre DNA, when in reality, GMOs have existed for thousands of years through cross and selective breeding. The only difference now is that science has given us the ability to speed up the process and increase the chances of getting the desired outcome. This isn't something like vegetables with the DNA of pigs spliced into them. It's more like vegetables with the DNA of another plant spliced into them to make them naturally repellent to pests or able to grow in harsher environments. This is why GMO-free crops require more pesticides and produce smaller harvests. However, there's so much fear-mongering around GMOs that people latched onto it, and it only was a matter of time before it was scooped up by the autism warrior parents as a cause for autism. For things like gluten and lactose, the reason people believe it causes autism is because of something called leaky gut syndrome, which is currently a baseless theory which speculates that if someone has increased intestinal permeability, basically meaning that their intestines allow larger than normal molecules to cross over into the bloodstream, then those molecules will travel through the body and wreak havoc, causing such things as autism, inflammatory bowel disease, fatigue, joint pain, eczema, psoriasis, and much, much more. Now, increased intestinal permeability is a real thing. It's a common symptom for people who have such diseases as Crohn's and celiac. However, it isn't the cause of anything, including autism. But that doesn't stop parents from putting their kids on all the newest fad diets. Not only are gluten and lactose seen as bad foods to these people, but so is fresh fruit because they have sugar in them. Apparently, they never learned the difference between healthy and unhealthy sugars. It doesn't help that leaky gut syndrome is pushed by not only the natural health communities and alternative medicine doctors, but also famous TV personalities like Dr. Oz, someone who has also pushed the myths about vaccines and GMOs causing autism. It's so hard to convince people that their child's autism isn't caused by this, that, or the other thing, when they're being told the opposite by people with doctor in front of their name. We've already touched on the subject of curing autism through fad diets and the miracle mineral solution, but there are so many other horrible, horrible treatments that autistics have had to endure. I'm just going to warn people here that there are some parts that might get a bit heavy for some people. So don't feel bad if you need to duck out at any point. Most of it's okay, but some of it, you know. Earlier, I talked about how neglectful parenting was seen as a cause for autism. Well, apparently, child abuse is seen as a cure. Yep, we're jumping headfirst into the horrible. Some people view autistic children who may whine when the lights are too bright, or their clothes are uncomfortable, or people are being too loud as spoiled little brats. Children who are unable to eat certain foods because of sensory issues are scolded for being picky eaters. Children who can't get their chores done because of autistic burnout are disciplined for being lazy. Autistic children get reprimanded for behaviors that they have no control over. They're hit or yelled at or restrained or locked into a secluded room, not just by parents, but by teachers and babysitters. And it's not just autistic children who have to go through this. Autistic adults also suffer abuse from parents, spouses, and friends. I remember reading about one autistic adult who would get locked in the closet by their now ex spouse. And there have been many stories of both autistic children and adults dying from being restrained. People seem to think that we have complete control over our behaviors and that all we need is some discipline to put an end to it. But that's not how it works. It's abuse, and in some cases, that abuse is deadly. So, I remember one time seeing this graphic listing a bunch of myths about what causes autism, and magnets were listed. I wish I had saved it because now I can't find it. Well, now it. Yeah, I know, magnets. Well, now it seems that magnets can cure autism as well. Now, now magnet therapy is nothing new. It's been a pseudoscience cure all like since the 1970s. If anyone remembers those like magnet bracelets that were supposed to like prevent or cure arthritis, yeah, those things. Apparently, it's supposed to be able to heal broken bones, cure cancer, and now autism as well. Now, don't confuse magnet therapy with transcranial magnet stimulation, which has been used to help treat depression. No, this is about using magnets, no more special than the ones you stick on your fridge, somehow magically curing you of what ails ya. The methods used are either magnets touching your skin, usually via magnetic jewelry, electrically charged magnets shooting an electric pulse into you, or even magnetic acupuncture, which is placing magnets where an acupuncturist would put needles. I'm already dubious of acupuncture, so magnetic acupuncture just feels like piling up the pseudoscience. One theory that I'd never even heard of before, but is now being used to cure autism, is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Basically, it's a chamber that pressurizes oxygen around your body or lungs at a level higher than our normal atmosphere. This is an actual treatment for people with deep burns, crushing injuries, or divers with nitrogen uh, narcosis, which occurs when one breathes air under elevated pressure and can cause someone to feel as if they're drunk or have inhaled nitrous oxide. Why people saw this as something that could cure autism, I have no idea. Most studies showing that hyperbaric oxygen therapy cures autism were uncontrolled, meaning that there was just one group studied instead of what's done in a controlled study where there's two groups and one, it's sort of like you'd have one that a group that has autistic people, one that doesn't, and they're used for comparison purposes. Any study on this that was controlled showed conflicting results. I can't stand when people take actual therapies for actual conditions and try it out on autistics to see if it somehow makes their autism disappear. The next one I'm going to talk about is homeopathy. Homeopathy is an incredibly popular alternative medicine that's been around since the late 1700s. The theory behind homeopathy is that substances that cause symptoms of a disease in healthy people will cure the symptoms of sick people. I'd never really looked into homeopathy before. I always just brushed it off as silly pseudoscience. But now that I have, it's more ridiculous than I thought. If someone is showing a symptom of a disease, you give them a substance that gives healthy people that exact same symptom, and that's supposed to cure you? With autism, it's believed that you should give autistic kids substances that would give neurotypical kids the symptoms of autism. So, does that mean if they wanted to cure me of my autism with homeopathy, they would have to give me substances which would make a neurotypical person love baking power metal and have a slightly unhealthy obsession with Darth Maul? I don't know, maybe. But that sounds awesome. More neurotypicals should love baking power metal and have a slightly unhealthy obsession with Darth Maul. I'm just saying. Um, since even homeopaths understand that each autistic person is different, what they'll do is observe and take note of particular behaviors and figure out a treatment plan from there. The assessment process closely resembles functional behavior assessments that's common with ABA. Sadly, this gives homeopathy treatment for autism more respectability in the eyes of those who support ABA. Speak. Oh, hey, Peekaboo Peaches. Hi. Peekaboo Peaches has her own YouTube channel. Check it out. It's pretty awesome. She's also an autistic advocate and creator, and absolutely check her out. Speaking of ABA, that's the last one we're going to talk about. I'm planning on doing a full live stream on ABA at some point, so I'm just going to go over the basics. ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis, is basically gay conversion therapy for autistics. Gay conversion therapy literally got its treatment ideas from ABA. Not only is it teaching autistic kids to hide part of who they are, it's also incredibly intensive, with children as young as 2 having to go through 40 hours a week of therapy. That's longer than school hours a week. And people are expecting this of toddlers? People like to push back against critics of ABA and by saying, "Oh, ABA isn't like that anymore. It's changed." Yeah, it has, but there are still severe problems with it. For starters, the primary goal is to change behaviors. They don't look into why the child does those behaviors. Like if they're trying to communicate something along the lines of, "I don't feel safe," or "Stop doing that to me." They see autistic behaviors as bad simply because they're different. What harm is it if you let your child wiggle in their seat or flap their hands or communicate in a way, excuse me, that's comfortable to them? It isn't fair to the autistic child to force them to be something they're not just because you want them to be neurotypical. Secondly, ABA is a compliance based therapy. Autistic children are taught to obey no matter what. Usually, toys or snacks will be withheld until they comply. It reminds me of a dog getting a treat after doing a trick. In some cases, parents are advised to withhold attention from their child until they behave the way the parent wants them to. Earlier, I talked about how neglectful parenting is blamed for causing autism, but apparently it's part of ABA. This is manipulation, and it's not just harmful, it's dangerous. These children are being taught that when someone tells them to do something, they must comply. Consent doesn't matter. And what do you think happens when someone is taught that their consent doesn't matter when it comes to sexual situations? What do you think happens when a predator targets a child? That child. That child who is taught that they must obey adults. ABA isn't just abuse. It makes autistic children much more susceptible to future abuse. Thirdly, when you're forcing a child to go through 40 hours of therapy a week, you're making it so they have very little free time. They're basically being expected to hold down a full-time job. Where's the time for them to play, run around, and have silly fun? The luxury of free time is being taken away from them. They don't have time to indulge in hobbies, hang out with friends, play video games, or just do what they want to do. They don't get time to unwind. And again, this is often started at toddlerhood. Even when they aren't in therapy, parents are often encouraged to continue the therapy activities. These kids have to be on at all times. They don't get downtime. They don't get to be themselves at any time. How is this anything but abuse? How is this anything but traumatizing? And finally, by forcing these children to change through ABA, you're teaching them that they need to be fixed, that there's something wrong with them, and the only way they'll fit in is to not be themselves. You're teaching them that their natural behaviors, such as stimming, are shameful, and that They should be ashamed for being themselves. People have enough problems with self esteem as it is, and adding this on will just make it so much worse. Is it any wonder that almost 50% of autistics who have gone through ABA have PTSD? It doesn't help that in certain places in Canada and the US, and probably other places as well, ABA is the only therapy for autistics that's covered by insurance. ABA has been around for so long that it now basically has a monopoly on autism therapy. Pediatricians and psychiatrists will tell parents to seek ABA, as will so many online autism parent groups. Parents put their children through ABA because they're told it's not just the right thing to do, but the best thing for their child. More and more people are speaking up against ABA, but I'm not going to be happy until it's completely gone. Now, with that heaviness out of the way,
Lifted.
it's that time of the live stream again. Time for answering emails. I got one this time that asks, I usually like listening to Christmas songs, especially video game ones, all year round. Is that weird? And my answer to that is no, that's not weird at all. For many people, Christmas is a time of joy and warmth, and it makes sense that some people want to revisit those times. Also, I'm not gonna lie, some Christmas songs are absolute bops to listen to, no matter what time of year it is. Everybody has their own tastes in music. If your favorite music genre is Christmas music, whether from video games or not, embrace it and enjoy it. Music is made to move us, to make us feel things. Never be ashamed of the music that moves you. Not everyone is going to understand your taste in music, but they don't need to understand it to respect it. So, yep, we're wrapping things up, and we're going to start the wrap up by thanking my patrons. Number one, of course, is my dad, my number one supporter through most of my life. Also like to thank Dominic. Big thank you. I really appreciate it. Another big thank you to Nick. You are all just so awesome. And of course, big thank you to all of my patrons, who $1 and $5 patrons. I appreciate all of you. So, I just want to say, I do have a minor announcement. One thing I would like to plan to do in the future is, of course, Sia's movie is out, music. At least, yes, well, Thanos, now we can start talking about Darth Maul. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. So, Sia's movie is out in theaters, and it's been getting panned horribly. I want to wait until it comes out available for DVD, Blu-ray, digital download, stuff like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record myself watching and reacting to it. And I want to make an edited video. I'm not going to do upload an entire me reacting to the entire video, because that would be taken down immediately. But it's just going to be clips of me going through it and watching it. And I do want to put that up. It's going to be a video, so you're going to see me. The only reason why I'm not on video right now is because with my VPN, my internet literally can't handle the video aspect of live streaming.
Okay, to be fair, technically it can, but it's way too inconsistent because that's just the way it is here. Like, we can get times when the speed is incredible, and other times it's just like, snail it, outpace us.
Yep. Also, Robbie, yeah, no worries about having to get that out of your system. Nicely done.
I burst out into song all the time.
They do. Oh my gosh, yes. And I love it. So, yes. Embrace your love of music. Burst out into song. But yeah, I do want to do a video of me reacting to Sia's movie. And post it here. I finally used that webcam you got that has the circle light.
Ah, yes! It will light up your face and the world across this space.
Yes. Thank you for that. But yeah, so, anyways. So, this one was kind of shorter. Sometimes I can only make them so long. Like these live streams, writing the script often takes like 2 days, and I can only put so much information. I could have made more about ABA, but I want to make its own video. Also, Peekaboo Peaches, I'm glad you loved watching my live stream. I like watching your videos. Again, people, subscribe to Peekaboo Peaches. Do it. Anyways.
Do it now.
Anyways, yeah, that is the end to this, and I will see you next weekend. Thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.
Bye.